Hey everyone, welcome back to another exciting live stream. Before we dive in, I want to give a huge shout out and thanks to the very first official sponsor of my channel, Merlin. Merlin changed the game for how I manage my crypto portfolio, so this exclusive partnership makes a whole lot of sense. Merlin offers advanced tools for wealth preservation, including exit strategies. Their platform is plugged into the world's leading exchanges, so you can get one clear snapshot of your crypto holdings. And I personally use Merlin to optimize my exit strategy to maximize my returns. Merlin empowers me to make informed decisions and plan effectively for both bull and bear markets. Links to Merlin are in the description below. Big thanks to the team for their support. And thank you all for tuning in today. Let's jump into the discussion and explore the latest trends and insights in the world of blockchain. Head on a swivel, ladies and gentlemen.
3, 2, 1, lift off.
Head on a swivel, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the live stream, Ray Live. I've got two honorable guests here. We're actually out in Cape Canaveral, Florida for the Quantum Summit. To my left, we have David Branscombe, founder of Digital Outlook, and also we've got Versan Al-Jarrah, founder of Black Swan Capitalists. How you doing today, gentlemen?
Really good. Really good.
Doing well. Thank you very much.
How'd I do on the pronunciation of your last names?
Wonderful.
Perfect. You nailed it.
Excellent. I appreciate it. Well, guys, let's dive on in. I know you're busy and we're out here on vacationing as well, so we want to enjoy ourselves in this wonderful Florida sun.
Yeah.
A recent document from the Supreme Court confirmed that there is a new financial system running parallel or outside the Federal Reserve, a quantum financial system running next to the broken fiat system that we know today. What are your thoughts? Let's start with you, Dave.
Well, I think that this has been something that has actually been operating probably for the last 3 to 5 years. I think just the recent disclosures that we're getting now, that's what I would call them, are making it more publicly aware. But the fact of the matter is the current system has been on a almost like a pre-planned demolition. And I think we can all see what's been happening, especially over the recent months and what's been, going on with our current, fiscal policy. I'll say it that way, because right now we're supposed to be in a situation where inflation is supposed to be being brought under control. And you're seeing a lot of central banks right now, including the Federal Reserve, dropping the the interest rates, those 25 basis points. And the real reason for that, because as we know individually, we know for a fact that real inflation has not diminished one iota. In fact, it's practically increased. Two major factors they don't include in the CPI numbers that a lot of people think they would. Number one would be food costs, and the other one is energy costs. Well, for every average folk, that's where the real inflation is. And you're seeing, you're not seeing any new employment or anything like that. But what this is easy money for big time corporations. And the Federal Reserve is doing what all central banks have always done. And the only bullet in their gun to do is to inflate the currency. And the purpose of inflating the currency is basically the planned demolition of this current financial system. Because the reality is, under this current financial system, Federal Reserve came in, I think, in 1913, if that's not correct. And, since it's come in, the purchasing power of our dollars has dropped 98%. What does that tell you? It tells you that we are literally going to a planned destruction. Now, with that, and I love it to say it this way, the guys who set the fire are going to be the ones that show up with the hose and saying, hey, we've got the answer. When it's all said and done and it's completely imploded, they're going to show up with a new system. Well, that new system, the infrastructure for it has been being laid over the last number of years. When I do this is a shameless plug, but when I do my presentation at the Quantum Summit,
Dave.
When I do my presentation at the Quantum Summit, I'm going to be talking about the global money supply and tokenization. And I'm going to be showing concrete evidence right in legislation where they have a sunset clause in the Bank Act towards this current system. So that's in a nutshell what I see. This has been pre-planned. We're just following right to the letter. That's how I view it.
What are your thoughts, Versan? Or piggybacking on this off Dave, is this all a predetermined show?
I really think it is. And, it was really around 2020 when the pandemic started. That's kind of when I understood what they were doing. They were going to break down the monetary system. That's really what gave away their, their initial, like what they were trying to do. They were bringing down the monetary system, obviously, in order to bring something new. So I think this was predetermined. And if you look even deeper, not to go down to the rabbit hole too much, but it seems like this was planned out for a very long time. Then you can look at all their monetary policies, and it's very irresponsible. So there's no doubt what they're trying to do is usher in something new. And I'm not really familiar with the document at the Supreme Court. But if you were to say that there's another parallel system running aside, I would say absolutely.
Now, taking this conversation a little bit further, obviously, given the circumstances of what the central banks are dealing with and the friction and the understanding that they're moving to buying a lot of gold up right now, do you think that central banks are buying up gold and moving to a gold-backed standard or a gold-backed system because they want to or because they have to?
Well, I absolutely believe that eventually we will have to reset the system because, and remember, right now we're dealing with a confidence-based monetary system. So right now you've got, and this is another thing to talk about, and I'm sure we're going to get into it, is you've got the petrodollars being the world reserve currency. Now, we know that came about in the Nixon era when Henry Kissinger went out and negotiated with the House of Saud in Saudi Arabia with respect to, the selling of oil under only U.S. denominated purchases. Now, that was massive. I don't think many Americans truly understand the lifestyle that it has given us in Western nations, this whole reserve currency petrodollar deal. Now, that has come to a very abrupt end here. And in fact, on June 9th of this month, that contract is over. Now, we know already that many of these BRICS nations that are oil producers, Saudi Arabia, Argentina, and all of that, have already come out and said, we are not any longer going to be beholden to a US dollar petro system. And in fact, it wasn't that long ago that China went out and bought 1 million barrels of oil. What did they use to pay for it? The digital yuan. Now, central banks have been net accumulators of gold for a very long time. I do believe that if we are going to reset the system, that eventually it is going to be an agnostic, not a national. Right now we have a national world reserve currency in the US dollar. I think the next iteration of this is not going to be like China's yuan. I don't think they have the infrastructure to do it. I don't think we're going to go to any other national one. I believe it's going to be an agnostic one. And it would not surprise me to see the IMF involved in an ESDR, special drawing rate, that is backed by gold, but issued on distributed ledger technology. And that's where I see this system going. And it'll be agnostic, meaning, by the way, for those who don't know, and just to say this out there, the X in XRP, XLM, means it's an agnostic currency that can be utilized by any nation state. And so that's where I see it. And I do believe it'll be an agnostic system, that there will be a reserve currency, but it'll be one that is governed. Maybe it'll be a board, from could be the IMF, could be something like the IMF, the G20, G7, they could all be involved. But I think it's going to be one type of currency. And that's where I do believe, to get global confidence in it, so that that one nation's economy isn't the confidence in that economy, it will have to be backed by an asset that everyone agrees with. Gold has been God's money for 5,000 years. I believe that's what it's going to be.
Now, question, and then I would love for you, Versan, to piggyback off where Dave to continue is, do you think by us witnessing what they're doing, what China's doing with the digital yuan, that we're able to learn some of the pros and cons and then implement and adjust?
Yeah, I do. I absolutely do. I think China, number one, remember, with their central bank digital currency, along with that, and I'll say this, along with that, of course, is its ties to their decentralized digital identity, right? Because of course they have a social credit score system where they can turn money on and off. They utilize that. Now we're looking for a system, or this is the big debate in this election, of course, is a central bank digital currency, and one in which that would protect our autonomy and privacy and all that. It can be technically done, but is there the political will for that? And so this is now a hot topic. The issue is there, and we are all going towards digital identities and all of that kind of stuff. The issue, of course, is going to be whether or not this new digital system, employing central bank digital currencies, and look, 98% of nation states are producing, so they're coming whether we like it or not, is how is that going to pan out with respect to the average person and that type of thing, and to utilize. So I absolutely believe that there will be ties into it. And this is something that, you know, to point out, a lot of people don't even understand yet, is right now, every individual in the United States already has a digital account assigned to them. They just have not yet received it. And that's by legislation, by the way.
That's true. If
Yeah.
I can also
Continue that.
well, I just want to mention something about the gold. And, you know, central banks, they don't speculate, right? The reason they're buying gold is because it's for a strategic purpose. That's like the only reason they would be buying it. And they don't care about the price. So if they're buying up all the gold, you know, I really think it's for strategic purpose. And if we talk also with the emergence of technologies like blockchain, we can now tokenize these assets. Who knows, right? What they're doing. And I think stable coins also do come into the picture here really fast. So there's no doubt that if we are going to a new monetary system, it's going to have to be backed by gold, and it cannot be backed by, it has to be backed by hard assets, right? This debt-based system, in my opinion, it's either evolving or coming to an end in some form fashion, right? What else? There's also the importance to understand is that silver is the Achilles heel to gold, and gold is the Achilles heel to all currencies. And that's the way it's going to be. So
I agree.
On the topic of silver, I was having an interesting conversation with one of the gentlemen that's actually here today about COMEX 589. How does that have any relationship to silver and what's going on here?
I'll let Versan is really good at this.
well, no, I'm not actually. The thing is, I just think holding hard assets is where this is all going. So personally, I would just tell people, you know, ignore a lot of the noise out there and just kind of go with what the 1%ers are doing. Follow the money. That's what the smart money is doing.
Well, and I would also say this: if you are going to be an accumulator of gold and silver as a hedge, not an investment so much, but a protection of your purchasing power, really, then I think you want to be holding on to physical assets. The reason I say that is the paper. We know for a fact that a lot of these big players, look at JP Morgan, faced a huge fine, and even I think some of their traders faced some criminal prosecution as well for, you know, manipulating the silver market. And we know that these markets in the paper market are totally manipulated. Yeah. So if you are going to utilize that as kind of like a hedge, then my thinking is you probably want to be holding on to the physical assets right there. And the demand, by the way, for physical is out the door, and it is not yet translated in the actual price of what these assets are.
It just hasn't been recognized.
Hasn't been recognized.
Yeah. On the topic of price, you know, gold is priced around what, $1,900 per ounce. Silver is around 28.
Crazy.
What do you think the price of these precious metals would need to be in order to make this asset-backed system work?
If you really want my honest opinion, I think the price would actually blow people away. But if you want to know, I'd say about $85,000 for an ounce of gold, and somewhere around $5,000 to $9,000 for silver.
You heard that here, folks, from Cape Canaveral.
Now that's
Digital
just
Dave's outlook.
that is just what I look at from it, because of course we know every ounce of gold that was ever mined. By the way, we can know that. Versan, I would really, go in. Man.
No, I don't. You know, David and I, we have good synergy here. We always bounce back off each other. But the thing is, we've actually talked to people who've done the math. Yes. And if you're looking at all the global debt and out there and all the money that's just floating out there in dollars too, and whatever other currencies, you know, the price of gold would certainly have to be high. And it's not just that, it's the price of pretty much all things, you know, reevaluation of certain metals out there. And if we are going to an economy with hard assets, there is certainly going to be a reevaluation. Hence, the Bank of International Settlements taking gold to a tier 1 asset class and did not get world news, by the way. And that should have been world news. That says something. And at the same time, they're accumulating. So, and then of course, what we're talking about here, this new parallel system, possibly, right? Yes. All this new technology, you're going to see that intersection between the metals market and that. But certainly reevaluation is in the books. And I would certainly put money on that.
The one thing I would definitely say, and I would say this for the average American, reality is all of our consumer goods are going to go up astronomical in price. And I mean down to the littlest thing. And there's going to be a major, and there already is a major disconnect between the economy and the market. Now, a lot of people will sometimes they'll say, well, how can that be? How can there be a disconnect from the market to the economy? Well, it happens this way. Back when the whole deal was going on, what happened? almost everything in our economy came to a screeching halt, from manufacturing to services, no restaurants, no movies, no this, transportation of things, this and that, whatever. However, what happened in the markets? They went on one of the biggest secular bull markets the world has ever seen in a period of 12 to 13 months. How did that happen? Well, I'll tell you how that happened. Because central banks were buying up the market. That's how it happened. And it was easy money for a lot of these, big players and big bankers in this space. Right now, with the reduction of these basis points, like I said earlier, we are not seeing a real reduction in inflation at all. We're not at all. And yet they are cutting the rates. Now, we have called this months in the past. Months in the past, we had said this is how they're going to play it. There's going to be another one. By July or August, there's going to be another cut. By September, October, another cut. They're going to keep cutting till they cut it 1%, 1% in the total rate. And why are they doing that? Because it's going to be easy money for these major banks. They are going to push this market to levels I think most people can't even imagine, while at the same time, you're going to watch an economic crushing wave come in. And why is that? Why would we say that? Well, because if you're looking at a death of a petrodollar, what really, and this is an amazing statistic. Now I know I'm taking a little, but think about this, guys. There are more $100 bills in Russia than there are in the United States. That tells you something right there. That is an absolute statistical fact. Now, when you think about that and you're watching the world, move away from that dollar, what happens to those dollars? Well, the Federal Reserve can't just burn them. Those are coming back on shore. When they come back on shore, the United States is going to face something that many other nations have faced. They're going to face hyperinflation to a degree that most of us can't imagine.
Right. Hyperinflation. And that's also, I've talked about this a lot. I think it's part of the wealth gap that's continuing to, there's going to be a point, I think, when you guys have an opportunity to make a lot of money by investing in the technology again. But the wealth gap, it's continuing to widen. It's not getting easier. Inflation is certainly going up. And what they're going to do is try to consolidate the financial system. And I think that's what they have been doing by printing all this easy money and keeping those interest rates so artificially manipulated. Then it gives them, the big bigs, right, to print all this money, buy everything with those dollars, and widen that wealth gap, because the result of that is inflation. And for them, they don't care about inflation. It's like a speeding ticket for them. For us, it's like, people have to deal with that.
In fact,
it's very sad. So
no, the whole goal of the central banks is to inflate. That is the goal. Yeah. I mean, that is their target. Their target is to inflate. In fact, they can inflate their debt literally away. We can't inflate our debt away, right? They can inflate their debt away. Remember, how is their debt originated? Did they go borrow it? No, they go and create it. Augustin Carson, general manager of the Bank of International Settlements, this is what he says about paper notes. He basically says each one of these paper notes, $100 note, $50 note, $20 note, it's a liability instrument. And that's exactly what it is. Every paper note is a promissory note back to the federal, or back to the central bank that created it. That's what it is. And Versan is absolutely right. This is a consolidation of power. Just recently, we heard the FDIC come out and basically, what did they say? 63 banks are at the point of insolvency. 63 banks, to the tune of $517 million, half a billion dollars, $500 billion. $1 trillion mortgage-backed securities. Are you ready for round two, folks? That's what's coming down the line. That is what's coming down the line. And what happens with those banks when they do collapse? Well, the big banks suck them all in. Hey, when Silicon Valley Bank and all that went down, who sucked all those depositors? JP Morgan did, didn't they? You've got only a few banks, and who sits on Federal Reserve? It is, for a lot of folks, I know we think a lot of people know this, but the Federal Reserve is not a federal agency. It's member banks. They don't even have to disclose their books and records to the government.
It's a mafia.
It is a total dog and pony show like we have never seen. And they are absolutely, it's a consolidation of power. And having said that, I'm going to say this, and I know this is controversial. What's going on right now is we're being marshaled to global war. We can see that. You're talking about conscription being brought back in Germany, Europe, the UK. They're talking about it here, and on and on and on. And what is that for? Well, to feed one of the biggest money printing machines that they ever conceived. And that's the military industrial complex. Watch and see.
Inflate.
On the topic of printing value, we are familiar of the asset Tether and how every time that Tether's printed, the value of Bitcoin seems to increase as well. What are your thoughts on the crypto market, or actually, what are your thoughts on Tether and the crypto market as it is today? Do you think that there is potential for some type of black swan event that would influence the overall crypto market and then potentially maybe shepherd in a new wave of regulations or things of that nature?
I'll keep it very lightly. I'll let David come
Go
finish
full
it.
speed.
But I've researched this thoroughly, and I know for a fact that Tether has been used to prop up the bond market in the U.S., help them even prop up their currency because no one wants it anymore, right? And it kind of ties into the whole de-dollarization thing. But without going too much into that much detail over there, I know for a fact that Tether is, they've avoided audits and they've had lots of very strange connections and relationships with different entities out there. And go ahead.
Just actually recently posted a video of Brad Garlinghouse mentioning up on stage that even Ripple uses Tether for specific payment flows. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think a lot of institutions have used Tether because Tether is still out there and you can use Tether. I've transacted in Tether before, but it doesn't answer the bigger question of Tether's associations and affiliations and what they're really doing, their objectives. So I just think there's a lot of clout over there that we still do not understand and it hasn't been revealed yet. And they say it's a stable coin, but it's not a stable coin. It's broken the peg multiple times. Janet Yellen had to come into Congress and testify about why it kept breaking the peg. So there's just a lot of questions to be asked over there.
Who's printing this value? Where is this value coming from?
You want to touch on that?
Yeah. Well, Tether. When Tether, so basically with a stable coin, what you're really wanting to see real world assets that back that stable coin, unless it's an algorithmic type of stable coin, which I think right now, a lot of jurisdictions around the world, especially Bank of International Settlements, has been encouraging nation states to go out there and collectively, the G20, G7, come up with a cohesive type of legislation and legal clarity around stablecoins. And we are definitely seeing a push like that in the United States. Now, the whole deal, though, is they're looking for stablecoins that, number one, are not algorithmic in their backing, but are backed by real world assets. Well, it's very interesting that Tether literally uses Bitcoin and stuff like that to back it. So it's almost like a circular motion. And this is one of the things, like Versan had said, it's not totally transparent in terms of what its auditing practices have. In fact, they have been fighting to avoid having to be forcibly produce audits. I mean, you got the state in New York that took Tether to task in a big way. And we all know what happened there. And so, I really feel that I think this is what I believe will happen. I don't think Tether is going to literally implode and collapse. I don't think that's going to happen. Yeah. What I do think is markets are going to start backing away from the utilization of Tether. And you're going to watch USDC and maybe RLUSD, Ripple's new stablecoin that has not yet been released, come out and start taking out market share. And what will end up happening is it'll just be relegated to less and less and less, because I don't believe they can afford to collapse it, because a collapse of Tether right now would be tantamount, literally, because it would not just hurt crypto, it'll hurt every market. And it would be almost tantamount to the Federal Reserve collapsing. So go ahead.
Can I throw in another point? Just to play a little devil's advocate there, it's possible that they might want to, I don't know if Tether will be the one to crash. I like what you said. It made a really good sense that they would slowly move their market value away from it and kind of go into things that are backed by hard assets. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
But then again, if they wanted to really control this,
they
could use this as an excuse, just as we've seen with the SEC and all the corruption in there. They have literally collapsed multiple exchanges while being behind it. And then come in, make their money, take their profits, and say, hey guys, Look what happened.
Perfect.
We
example.
need to regulate this because we have to protect investors. Yet they're pocketing your money and sending it to Ukraine, whatever. You know, I don't want to get into that too much,
It's good to say.
but it's the truth,
Yeah,
you
it
know?
is the truth.
So they could use Tether as an excuse to collapse the industry and come in and really enforce a new system.
Yeah.
You never know. I'm just playing devil's
And
advocate, guys.
do you think that would prop up an environment or a situation for a positive situation for market participants like Circles who are using short-term treasury bills to back their USDC? You know, I was able to attend a Circle event in New York around the Ripple Proper Party or Ripple conference last year, and Jeremy Allaire on stage said that the company processed, I believe, $12 trillion. $12 trillion. I mean, these are astronomical numbers. And they had done so in a short, that I believe it was only in 5 years or less, or maybe regardless. So these are big numbers. They're doing things within the framework that I would believe is going to be proven to be the appropriate pathway, given think about the antagonists like Tether or the tethers of the stablecoin arena.
I just think that we're going to see a lot of the bad actors get weeded out. And naturally, as regulation evolves too, whether it's the CFTC or the SEC, and I believe the SEC has no place to regulate these assets at all. I think they need to just kind of.
The SEC?
Yeah. They have no place to be in this.
You hear that, Gary?
Yeah, Gary, asshole. No. Sorry, guys. Excuse my language.
Well, no, I think Versan makes a good point. I mean, the Financial Innovation and Technology for the 21st Century Act, which just got House approval. I mean, that is a mouthful right there. But Fit 21 is really one of the I think if this thing can make it through the Senate, and Biden's administration has said, listen, we're not going to veto this like they did with SAB 121, you know, which was the SAB 121 was the SEC's kind of like guidance over banks custodying crypto assets and things like that. And so that one got vetoed. But this one's got, look, 71 Democrats crossed the floor to support this Republican, led bill, Fit 21. That was major. And why? Well, I think they're out there to, protect their political careers is why, because you got 60 million Americans, voting Americans that are holders and participators in this digital asset space. That is a significant number. That's more than 20, that's 20% of the voting population, right? Of those that might show up to the polls, because this is a hot topic. So I think you're going to see, like Versan was saying, you're going to see regulatory clarity come in, and in a fast way. And stable coins absolutely are going to be a part of this. I do absolutely believe, when you take a look, like you had asked about USDC's market share is going to increase. I do believe that. And I do believe Tether is going to diminish because they're going to set it up like that. Let's look at FTX. Do you honestly think that the SEC did not know in advance of what was going down with FTX? You had Sam Bankman-Fried going in there and literally having face-to-face with Gary Gensler how many times prior to the whole implosion of that deal? Now, the assets, apparently, as to the trustee for the whole FTX deal, they're almost ready to restart up FTX. They're ready to do that and make everybody whole. Apparently, that was like really damaged in that situation. But this is where I believe, now this is my personal belief, that this whole FTX deal came out of nowhere. This guy shows up with no real big history, all kinds of money backing him, sets up an exchange, sets it up offshore, issues their own FTT token. The SEC never addressed that, not once, and all this kind of stuff. Meanwhile, they go after XRP, which has been going in there, Ripple, 8 years of voluntary compliance. They let all the people hurt. And then what's the narrative? Exactly what Versan said there. Oh, well, we need all this legislation to protect you guys. Elizabeth Warren gets 1,001 talking points about how bad crypto is with this whole deal. To me, I just have to say that I personally believe that there was participation in that to some degree. So, will we see, these other stable coins like RLUSD, USDC take a more prominent role? I do believe we will. But that does not diminish, by the way, It does not diminish. I wearing an XRP Bulls, hat there.
Bronx Bulls.
Yeah, Bronx Bulls.
Jimmy Boyd, I got
yeah,
you, son.
Yeah, Jimmy. Hey, Jimmy, I'm going to put my hat on soon too. But needless to say, the deal is this: the utilization of stable coins is not going to diminish the necessity of these digital assets, these distributed ledger technologies. And I absolutely agree, they need to be administered. If it's not the CFTC, it has to be an agency that is, they might even come up with a brand new agency to do it, because you can't take 1940s Howey test legislation, and apply that to what this is. Because if XRP is a security, then the oranges in the Howey test should be securities. And if that's the case, every grocery store in America should have had to register with the SEC to sell it. That's why I believe Judge Annalisa Torres came out with the right decision to designate XRP as the only digital asset with legal clarity granted to it in federal court.
Awesome. Love to hear it. Well, Versan, I want you to piggyback off this and give your perspective of how this cookie crumbles between the SEC and Ripple. But before you do, I just want to say, I do want to give a shout out to the sponsor of this live stream. We've got Merlin. Merlin is the leading asset management app designed to simplify the complexities of cryptocurrency trading. I use them for their exit strategies and retaining my wealth. You guys, have you been using Merlin by chance?
Well, I haven't been using Merlin, but I'll tell you this much. I've watched Coach JV, and I will tell you this guy is really someone that I respect and trust, and I believe has integrity in this space. And I do believe he is genuinely out there and really trying to help the average person get ready.
Exactly. And it goes not just Coach JV, but you got Jeremy, you got Johnny, you've got
different people
Abs.
in the group.
It extends all the way down into the principles of the fundamentals of these companies and how we evaluate investing. That's to the core of what I believe Merlin is. These guys are a trustworthy team. They've built a great app. They've got a bunch of great things on the roadmap. So anyways, Merlin, love your products. Thank you and the team. Thank you for sponsoring this live stream today and all the live streams in Cape Canaveral. But anyways, back to you, Versan. How does this cookie crumble for Ripple and the SEC? And then Dave, take it home, sir.
Sure. Well, I really think this is already said and done. And I've talked about this a lot. I think it's said and done because this is too big of you have a lot of powers that are involved in this. And if you also look at the people who are adopting the technology, it's some of the biggest institutions out there. So in my opinion, I think this is a smokescreen, and the sole fixation of the mainstream news on Bitcoin and Ethereum, and even your Jim Cramers out there, that is the smokescreen again, the distraction to keep people diverted away from the real technologies that are going to be at the forefront of this new financial system or whatever is coming out there. So I think what's happening with the SEC and Ripple eventually, sometime, like I said earlier, more regulation is going to come out. This eventually will have to settle in a public setting. And when that moment comes, all this integration has been already put into place over the years. So that's one way it could play out. The other way is, I just could see some people from the SEC being removed even. It's very possible. Who knows, right? But again, this is said and done. I think it's set in stone, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. The SEC stuff is just drama and noise,
I would agree
in my
with that.
opinion.
I would agree with that 100%. And I would also say this: one of the questions that we oftentimes, as content creators get asked a lot of time is when. And I get that. I understand that people are waiting, they're accumulating. I'll tell you this much. Would you rather reach your accumulation goals when you're seeing these assets, some of them selling for under $1, under 50 cents, or would you rather be accumulating when they're into the double, triple digits? Well, I think we want to accumulate now, but the when is defined not by a date, but by an environment. And that environment is going to be when you watch these systems that they have in place right now. And we're seeing it. We're seeing the beginnings of it. Enter into this regulatory clarity phase. When that all gets said and done, and all of that's in place, and you are literally watching pension funds, hedge funds, and all these having, with all the fiduciary responsibility they have, they can't touch it. But when they can, it is going to be a race to the trough. Now, having said that, what do you think is going to transpire at that point? Well, the risk is going to come down, isn't it? And when that risk comes down, what are you probably going to see? For those that are buying, for everyone that sells XRP, imagine this, at $100, somebody else on the opposite side of that transaction has to be buying it. Ask yourself this: What's in the mind of the person buying an XRP at $100? Well, they're probably thinking it's going to $200. You're buying it at 50 cents. Sometimes even today it went to 45. And you think at some point in time down the road, you could be looking at a 3-digit XRP. This is why I oftentimes say that this transition that we are in, that we're talking about here, is probably going to represent the greatest wealth transfer in the history of mankind. I really do believe that because of what it means. But do you know how few people on a grand scale are even aware of it? Most people aren't. Most people are completely oblivious to it. And what's going to happen is this, guys. It's going to be like this. These things came out in 2007. Everybody, even grade school kids, have one now. When these digital assets really take hold, and it may take 5 years, whatever, it's going to be so revolutionary that I think we're going to look back and not even recognize the world we left compared to the world we come into. That's what I think.
Inspiring,
Yeah.
and very fitting for where we're even at today in Cape Canaveral, where NASA launches off, or the first Apollo missions, and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Good to be in this environment and on this journey with you, Rasan.
Yeah.
Last thoughts before we close up. I know we've gotten a little bit longer than we anticipated here.
Yeah, first of all,
I got to take advantage of your guys' time while you're here in Cape Canaveral.
No, it's great.
Thank you.
I really just want to, thank you, of course. Yeah. You've been a wonderful host, man. And, just everybody in the community, I really believe in community, and it's so important for all of us to have that mindset that we're going to get through this together. But at the same time, you have to be mindful of the powers that be and what is out there right now. There are dangers in the economy. And I want people to understand that bank failures are very possible. The fact that inflation is going to go up, that is no doubt is going to happen. So just people need to be mindful with their money, try to reduce your spending habits in some way, form, or fashion, and just try to learn how to have less. I think it's very selfish of us of people out there who try to live this lavish lifestyle that we cannot afford. And sometimes, yes, we are consumers, it's like, I almost feel it's like the last value in this country is buying things. So we need to humble ourselves and again come together and kind of make changes that we need to make. And all this stuff is going to happen regardless. It's just we got to kind of get through it. So
excellent. Before you guys go, how can those in the audience reach out, follow you? I know you guys both have proud courses yourself.
So you can reach us at blackswancapitalist.io, where we do our financing and consulting and whatnot, and Twitter, Versan Al Jarrah. On YouTube, Black Swan Capitalist.
Yep. And you can reach us at the digitaloutlook.com, and people can register to take our coaching and those type of things. And I'm going to give a shameless plug for us both. We have a new program that airs every Monday live stream at 12 noon called The Turning Point. And it's Vandel Al Jarrah, Versan Al Jarrah, myself, and Edo Farina. And we tackle all of these, topics and really go hardcore and try to give people at least a fighting chance and kind of pull back the curtain a little bit. So hope to see you on those live streams as well.
Is that noon Eastern or Pacific time?
That's actually Central Daylight Time. Central Daylight Time. Thank you.
And Mondays, you said?
Mondays.
Yes. I got to tune in myself.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, I appreciate you. I hope you have a great rest of your vacation.
Thank you.
Cape Canaveral. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Bless you.
Excellent. This is fun.
Okay.